Hey everyone, I'm Dormouse of Doom, and this is my top 10 games of the decade list. So, without too much blabbering on in the front of this, I do want to say this list does not include remasters or remakes. It is also my personal list for games that gave me the most enjoyment and have stuck with me the longest, etc., etc. This is very obviously not a list of the most impactful games of the decade or the most popular games of the decade. Just my list. Games I liked. For number 10 goes to Don't Starve. It's an indie game that was made by Klei. It's awesome. It's a survival game where you're not only managing food consumption, but if you get too hot or too cold in sort of the later seasons, you're also managing sanity, and when it gets dark, creatures will kill you in the darkness, or if you have light, try to steal your light. It's a lot of fun, it's very unforgiving, although there are a lot of settings for you to make the game easier or harder if that is what you prefer. I do always find myself going back to Don't Starve just for fun. They put out expansions for the game, the most recent one of course being their Hamlet expansion, which very, very good. And that actually came out this year. Every time I play Don't Starve, I feel like I discover something new, I discover a new way of doing things, a new sort of meta, so to speak. I find I love it, there's tons to explore, there's tons to do. It's just a really good game. They did a really good job with it, and I play it all the time. So number 9 on this list goes to Fail Better Games' Sunless Seas. I had an incredibly difficult time deciding whether I wanted to put Sunless Seas on this list or Sunless Skies. Sunless Skies being the 2019 sequel type thing to Sunless Seas. I love both of them, but in the end I picked Sunless Seas because I just thought about it really hard and went, okay, which game would I play if I could only ever pick one, and it goes to Sunless Seas. It's a fun roguelike, kind of. I don't know if you'd call it a roguelike. It's roguelike-ish. And you sail around the undersea, which is basically London has sunk into the sea, and so you sail around, you do odd jobs, you talk to people. There's lots of different storylines to follow, there's lots of different choices you can make that then impact the storylines, and there's just so much to it that even God knows how many hours I've put into it, I still don't feel like I have completed it, like I've fully completed it. And I like that, so really good game. Also, I just want to say that the Wretched Mog looked almost exactly like my cat I used to have, and it just made me really happy, so. Number 8 goes to a game that came out of early access this decade, and it's Starbound from Chucklefish. Starbound is a game that I started playing fairly early, both into its production, and actually it was one of my first sort of introductions to indie gaming, which I think was a pretty good introduction. I was so excited when it finally came out as a full game. It's been tons of fun. The Bounty Hunter update that was long awaited I thought was pretty good. It's Minecraft, but 2D, but in space. That's the best way of describing it. There is actually like a plot and storyline and actual characters now, which I think is fun. The different races have very sort of one-note and obvious personalities, but they are fun to interact with, and I like stealing all their shit and then going back to my ship, so it's fun. So number 7 goes to the only farming sim on this list. I really enjoy farming sims, but this is the one that stood out to me most this decade, and it is Story of Seasons Trio of Towns. Bet you didn't see that coming. I thought Trio of Towns was really well done. The idea of there being 3 different, very distinctive towns that you can interact with was lots of fun, and as opposed to something like Tale of Two Towns, where you kind of have to pick where to live, one town or the other, I thought Trio of Towns was nice because you can interact easily and do all the different events and special events and holidays with each town, which lots of fun. I have played through it a lot, you know, gotten married, had kids, just because I find it fun. There's a lot of different things you can do. You can even have oysters that give you pearls. Like, it's very in-depth for a lot of the animal stuff and also a lot of the crop stuff. Yeah, I find it to be the most enjoyable one I've played ever, actually. Seconded only by Grand Bazaar. So there's that. Also, every time I play, I marry Ford, because he is the best. Number 6 on this list goes to Disgaea 5. I have loved the Disgaea games since the first one. I love the strategy aspect of it. I always think the characters are tons of fun, and the actual world that Nippon Ichi has created is full of lore that I think is very interesting, and that's like a whole nother video to talk about the Prinnies, because oh my god, the Prinnies. But Disgaea 5 was a really, really standout game for me within the series itself. I had played all of them, but I just found that 5 really resonated with me in some ways that some of the previous ones didn't do quite as well, and I just found it really enjoyable. I liked all of the sort of new things you could do. The board game thing was kind of weird. I remember sitting there going, what is this? But it was lots of fun, so I don't really care. Of course, as like every Disgaea game, the storyline's over the top, the characters are nuts, and it's just fun and joyful, and then will punch you in the gut with feelings when you least expect it. It's a Disgaea game, but it's honestly one of the best ones, I think. Personally, I would rate it right after Disgaea 1, so take from that what you will. Also, have you watched people speedrun it? Because it's crazy. So, number 5 goes to Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon is a game that takes one of my favorite concepts that I don't think comes up as much as it should in a lot of sort of post-Tolkien media. And that is mental health. Mental health struggles is something that if you kind of know where to look, you can see throughout history, even if, you know, historically people didn't know what to call certain things. Darkest Dungeon is a game, much like Don't Starve actually, that takes the concept of sanity and sort of the horrors of like what you're dealing with within the game, and gives you consequences for seeing these things. I think it does it a lot better than Don't Starve, because Don't Starve you just sort of you just become insane slowly and you start seeing shadows where there aren't any, etc., etc. With Darkest Dungeon, you know, if you get scared by something, your character's stress level goes up, and at a certain point the stress can kill them, or they develop different bad sort of status effects. They can also develop good status effects, but so like they develop bad status effects, and often when you get back to town you will see, oh, your character has ended up with, you know, they have a beast phobia, so now they take a penalty against beast monsters when they see them. And it's little things like that, and then you know, another one maybe will end up claustrophobic, and all these different things that really, I think, resonate with, yes, this is exactly what venturing into these Lovecraftian horror dungeons will do to you. This is the way to implement sanity meters, I think. So really good job, Darkest Dungeon. That's like one of my favorite things. It's also a fun game, you know, the turn-based combat, the art is lovely. It's an interesting story. There's a lot of strategy to be had in what you can take down into the dungeon with you and then what you can bring back up, as your inventory is very, very limited. But end of the day, it's the mental health thing that always gets me. I'm like, yes, this is good. The developer of Darkest Dungeon, Red Hook Studios, also has done a lot of updates to the game and also added some really great expansions. I thought the expansions were really interesting. They've always been very fair for their pricing, and I just think it's been a really good game that has had very good support from the developers, and yeah, I highly recommend it. So number 4 on this list goes to Diablo 3. I don't know if people saw this coming or not. I adore Diablo as a franchise. I always have. It's been a very big part of my life as a game. And Diablo 3 coming out, I loved it personally. And I'm somebody who like adores Diablo 2. But I did find I really enjoyed Diablo 3. The expansions were cool. I thought I was okay with them. A little overpriced for Reaper of Souls, I think, but that's alright. I know a lot of people complain because of the auction house thing, and trust me, no good there. But I do like that they eventually fixed it, even if I'm not a huge fan of repatching games and then people are like, oh, it's better, but nah, it is, and I really like Diablo 3, so there you go. It's a lot more Diablo fun, the storyline's cool. I'm one of those people that just, I think it's neat. I've done a lot of research into Diablo as a franchise because post-Tolkien media, woot woot, and yeah, I think it's a good time. It's a fun game. We own it for like 3 different consoles because I just keep buying new versions of it. And I'm very excited for Diablo 4, even if I am slightly concerned about seeing other players in my game. I don't know if that's gonna work great, but we'll see. We'll find out. Good job with Diablo 3. So, number 3 on this list goes to Dragon Quest Builders 2. This shouldn't surprise anyone, and depending on which video comes out first, it really shouldn't be a surprise when you look at my top 5 games of 2019. But I adore this game. It's lots of fun, the story was great, even if somewhat predictable. The characters were great, the building is lots of fun. I'm still going back and building new things. The DLC was reasonably priced, and there wasn't very much of it. Big plus. And yeah, it's a good game. Number 2 on this list goes to Persona 5. I have adored the Persona games since Persona 3. I have played all of them. I love all of them. And Persona 5 is my favorite, hands down. There's a very special spot in my heart for Persona 3 and the hours and hours my friends and I would stay up and play it. But Persona 5 has to be my absolute favorite. I love the Phantom Thieves, even if I find they're sort of waffling. Are we doing the right thing? Because all the characters are, all the villains are so kind of evil for the most part. They're like, oh, are we doing the right thing? Yeah, but it's still fun. The characters are great. The gameplay's fun, although if you get hit when you're not expecting it, you might as well just start over most of the time because you're just dead. But no, it's still a great game, and I'm very excited for Persona 5 Royal when it comes out. So to end my top 10 games of the decade, there's no point in beating around the bush, it's Tales of Berseria. Look at my nice shiny case. Anybody who knows me fairly personally will know I'm obsessed with the Tales games and the Tales series as a whole. I love all of them. I think they're great. They're like my favorite JRPGs, and my absolute favorite of all of them is Tales of Symphonia. Always has been, probably always will be. I don't think anything can beat that. Part of it was my first Tales game, and so there's that very special place in my heart. Tales of Berseria is my second favorite. Absolutely. I haven't been so enchanted by a Tales game, and actually I haven't been this enchanted by a game in a really long time, except for, you know, some of the other games on this list. I adore this game, it's fun, the storyline's great. I love that it features as the main character a female, which is something that the other Tales games haven't done. You know, they always have like the sort of immediate secondary female, or, you know, whatever you want to call her. You know, Colette to Lloyd, Estellise to Yuri, people like that. But it was nice, and I mean, we did get in Tales of Exillia, we got Mila and Jude as dual protagonists, but we've never just had one. And I think it's cool to see. Velvet was great. She was really, really angsty, which could be kind of overwhelming, but then you're like, oh man, she's earned her angst, and at one point Laphicet does tell her to smarten the fuck up, which I can appreciate. The other characters were great. The mascot character in Bienfu was tons of fun. The storyline I thought was really, really solid. It was really impactful, and there was a lot of small details within the world building, especially close to the end, where I was like, oh man, better back up and talk about this. Like it was kind of crazy. So I'm really into it as a game. And that concludes my top 10 games of the decade. I hope you enjoyed it. Did I miss games? Probably, but these are my personal favorites. If you agree, disagree, what your top 10 of the decade are, let me know. I'm very curious. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!